Hey everybody, thanks for joining me here and thanks for checking out my podcast. Don't forget to subscribe to my YouTube channel and click the notification bell for new episodes. You can also find Shine Without Shame on Spotify and Apple Podcasts.
So I have been a teacher trainer now. I was a teacher trainer for an organization for my first certification program for 3 years. And then I stepped away from that to focus on opening the studio. And I have hosted and mentored now for my new certification program. I'm now about to launch my 6th cycle of teacher trainers, of trainees. Teachers in training is what I call them. And I just actually this past weekend, my current group just did their final seminar. They did their advanced level work. And it's the role of mentor is so amazing and rewarding, and also really, really challenging, because there is a period of their education where you do have to be dogmatic, because you are setting the foundation. You are providing them the alphabet. You are giving them the lines that they need to stay in. And it's a tough place to be in those first, they're with me for a total of 30 weeks. It's a tough place to be for the first 15 weeks, because I have to come at them with really sharp yes and no answers, even though there are so many shades of gray in the questions that they ask me. And in my mind, I'm thinking, yes, and ... no, and ... But I have to come across as this is the word according to Pilates. But now, being in this new place with them, they've finished all the foundational curriculum. I told them, things will change. Things will change. Your questions will no longer be met with hard yes, hard no, unless it's a safety issue. It's going to be more, well, what do you think about that? Well, why do you think that? And have you turned it on its head? Have you turned it upside down? Did you look at it from all perspectives? And yes, that's right, but did you think about this? And it's so exciting to be that catalyst for people to shine in that skill set of being an educator, being their own little mentor to their clients. It's an incredible feeling, and I'm still doing my own work in knowing that I'm good at that. It's a very fine balance between saying, well, I taught them how to do that. I taught them how to be a teacher. Did I teach them how to be a teacher? Or did I illuminate and spotlight the skill sets that they had? Did I help highlight the desires that they had? And actually, they became the teacher. And I was just there to make sure that I was holding up the mirror, or holding up the magnifying glass, or holding up, pom-poms if I have to. And that is a skill set. That is a skill set that I continue to work on really being proud of. And I spend a lot of time talking with other people. I also participate in sound healing and meditation. I see an astrologer. She's like my personal guide, my personal coach, and she has helped me, whether you opt to believe in it or not. She has helped me accept some of this is innately who I am. And for better and or worse. And how can I take those traits of who I am that are written in the stars and highlight them to be the very best version of that self and the very best of those skill sets possible. She's like half therapist as well. And it's really taken her saying, well, this is who you are, that has then made me get to a place of, well, this is who I am. As a mentor, as a teacher, as a guide, I was meant to do this, but to also maintain the humility of, I was maybe meant to do this, but this person still came to me as this beautiful package of material and interest and desire and wants and needs. And they were already there. I've just helped them get it organized and move it forward. Yeah, that is seeing right now in my life, seeing others succeed makes me more comfortable with succeeding myself. Yeah.
That makes so much sense.
I haven't said that out loud yet. But now I'm kind of like pondering that.
Yeah, I want to hold space for that. That makes a lot of sense. That just because I know I don't know you well, but you seem to want to be a part of like a win-win-win. You want kind of to move along with everyone, acknowledging that, you're on your own path and other people are on their own path and in their own kind of place in that, on their journey. But everything I've, experienced in just our brief conversations or when I've witnessed you at work, I always have there's this sense of like connection and kind of unity, acknowledging everyone has their own particular contributions or particular qualities that they're bringing to the table. But I always sense from you, it's like, well, let's all move together forward. And so it just makes sense to me that you just reflected on that aspect of your personality. And I'm wondering, I'm assuming that's, even though I know you have someone who's been helping you see that or be a mirror to you in terms of your innate qualities, abilities, gifts, but I imagine that aspect of you as a leader and wanting to help others become a leader in their own right, or just, take ownership of things in their own right. I imagine that's been a part of your life since you were probably young in different ways. It looked different. You didn't have a business necessarily when you were 6, but I'm curious for you, if you connect back to your childhood or your adolescence and just even small moments, but do you connect to like a pattern of you being that kind of leader that's not just a leader, but you're like educating others to be leaders?
Gosh, I wish I could tell you that it's that positive of a spin, but it's not. I think that my desire to move as a collective, it really stems from a lot of loneliness that I've experienced in my life. Being in the dance world is lonely. You are a party of one, advocating for yourself. You may have 7 friends in the ballet company, but you're also kind of in competition with them every single day. Your contracts are 1 year long. And so you get renewed every single year. And so you've got to perform. You've got to be your absolute best. And there is a lot of selfishness to that. I'm an only child. And so I also think there's just some built-in loneliness to that as well. There's a lot of isolation, and like, you are a party of one. you have your family, you have your extended family, but you learn to function in this very solo way, which I think makes a very resilient individual, but also can breed a lonely individual. And so when I reflect back on my initial desires and love of Pilates, it was because someone stepped forward and said, "You're not alone. I may only be here with you for 50 minutes, but you're not alone." And I think that at that point in time was I realized, or I absorbed how important and special that was to me. And so as I move forward in the business, I keep that idea in my mind. And we all have moments of loneliness, and we may not, speak it. Sometimes you can see it in clients when they walk in the door. Sometimes you feel it, you're aware of it. And so that idea of being a community matters a lot to me, very deeply.
Certainly feel that.
And even if it's just for 55 minutes, someone who might be going through something and feel really alone in that something, we may never talk about the something, but they're not alone. They've got my energy, they've got my teacher's energy, they've got the collective energy of the space, to feel like they are full and they are part of a community as well.
Well, I do believe you're succeeding in that way. Certainly I feel that when I'm in the studio, and maybe your idea of choosing this path because you were alone and then you felt like you belonged. I'm certainly will validate, your feelings and your sense of that as the reason why you sort of chose this path. But I also can't help but think maybe even the Nicole, the child Nicole, who did feel alone or who wasn't sure where she belonged at times, maybe this sense of connection was always kind of meant what you were meant to bring, even if you don't connect it back to, your childhood and that's how you operated. Maybe it didn't just come out of purely a sense of loneliness. Maybe it was always what you were going to bring. It just happened to kind of come through this path or this vein because it was much more obvious to you. Well, I felt alone and now I don't. I want to bring that to others. But there's no way for us to know exactly. And I'm not saying this. I want you to think differently about your assessment. I just want to say there's a part of me that kind of feels like maybe that was what you were going to bring anyway. It just happened to turn out this way because you chose the path you chose and you made the decisions you made, right? So whatever the origin, it certainly is something you've manifested in the world. And there's so much strength, even when you talk about your challenging times and the struggles, there's a lot of strength that comes through in your reflection on your journey. So I think that's something that you bring to your work and what you have to contribute. People sense that about you. So that's a really strong quality. And I certainly relate to this kind of party of one in what could seem like a team effort. I was a figure skater, roller skating, not ice skating, which nobody even understands that existed back in the day. But I was a figure skater when I was in elementary school and competed. I was a ski racer for a few years, competed. But those are always individual sports. Even if you're on a team, you still have to do your performance. And in most cases, your results didn't necessarily affect the team or the outcome of the team's results. Maybe there was occasionally some collective points that were gathered, but really it's an individual sport. But I realized there was a part of me that enjoyed that, because I just kind of got to do my own thing and figure out how I wanted to experience it and reflect on, my journey. But I recognize that I also very much really like to be a part of a team. I thrive when I'm a part of a team, but I really like the kind of somewhere in the middle. Everyone has their roles. Everyone has their responsibilities, maybe like basketball, which I did do a little. I had a brief career in high school in basketball, but I thrive where I kind of have my own tasks or my own role, but I'm always working with the team, which is different, I think, for me than the figure skating and the skiing. So it was still always mostly just about me, my performance. So that's something that I've learned. I've had to kind of learn to articulate for myself. Oh, that's of value to me. I actually succeed more when I'm a part of a team and where we're all contributing for the outcome, to create that outcome. So it's interesting that, and you've obviously done a lot of reflecting on where you feel like you shine and where you thrive, and recognizing where you've come from on your journey. So those are, I think, important steps to take in our lives, and that can evolve. Every kind of chapter looks different, but I know my personality is I need to be a part of a team. Like I wouldn't be good at like being a consultant who just kind of goes from job to job. And I would never feel like I'm really a part of the team. So I think this is part of the journey as well, kind of understanding who we are and how we fit in, and what kind of situations cause us to thrive. And that's part of what this podcast is promoting the idea of shining without shame, and also trying to promote the idea that comparing or competing isn't really necessary. Now, I recognize in certain arenas of life, the very nature of what people do is about competition. But I'm talking about even a bigger picture, like who you are on the planet, what you're doing here, what you have to contribute isn't really about competing, because no one can do exactly what you do, even if you're in the same area of interest. So those are the things that I always like to emphasize here, promote, and underline.
When I opened the studio in 2016, I was by myself for the first year. And then a colleague of mine connected me with a teacher who started to come to work with me. And when I opened the business, I just wanted to do it my way, right? I had been working with in someone else's studio, and I wanted to do it my way. I thought I could do it better. I thought I could do it differently. I wanted to emphasize this. I wanted to emphasize that. And I did it for a whole year, and it was so lonely. And then when I needed to find like, who are my peeps? Who are the ones that like I can connect with about Pilates in a really specific way? Like, who can I geek out with? And then it became really challenging to find those specific people. So I decided, well, I'll build them. And that's what ended up bringing forward the teacher training aspect of my business. And my first group of trainees were clients that had been my clients for a really long time. And then like one or two other people that just sort of like popped out of the woodwork out of nowhere. And I can remember so vividly in my very first studio. My first studio was like 700 square feet, little teeny tiny place. And I had these 4 apprentices practicing on one of our final seminar weekends. And the teacher trainer, I wasn't a teacher trainer yet. I was just hosting. the teacher trainer was here, and I can remember so vividly, even to this day, stepping back and looking at the space that I brainchild and all of the people there doing the thing that I love, and feeling like I did it. I made it. Like the thing I imagined, the thing I wanted to happen, it happened. Like this is success. It's incredible. And even now, I'm in a much bigger space now. Um, and there are 5, 6 teachers working all at once. And I do try in those moments to look up and come out of the oneness and look up and see what the bigger picture is, and to see the people I'm currently training, the people I've already trained, teaching, to hear the laughter, to hear the sounds of the springs, to hear the language of Pilates just all around me is the most beautiful, chaotic sound and sights I could ever imagine laying my eyes on. And those are the moments where I'm like, I did it. I'm successful. Um, it it's it really is the best and biggest reward I could ever imagine. And the current focus on the studio now is, how do I just keep that going? I never want to be a chain. I never want to be a franchise. I don't think I ever want multiple locations. I love the intimacy. The business has to obviously get big enough to be able to continue to sustain and thrive and keep going. But I now it's all about, how do I keep this magic, this intangible feeling that I feel, that sounds like you felt when you've come into the studio. Um, how do I keep that going? That's the new level of success for me.
I want to high five you. Yes. 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 And what you just said kind of brought me back to that original question about when is it enough? How do you honor or acknowledge your success? And it's like, I think the way I perceive it and my attitude about success is, if we're using the gifts, the talents, the qualities that are innately part of us, that we were born with, it's like gems. We have to mine them. We've got to bring them out, let them shine. But if we're utilizing those, ideally, and I'm saying this ideally knowing it's not easy, always, no matter how small or no matter how big our endeavors are, to me, that is being enough, and that is succeeding. It evolves, we grow, what we're part of grows, but knowing that we're enough, and knowing that we were born with enough, again, knowing that we have to kind of cultivate those qualities and develop skill, work on our skills, but the inherent part of us, the core of us, is what is the foundation of the decisions we make, the things that we're attracted to in life, the choices that lead us to new opportunities. And that will always evolve and change, and we have setbacks. But I think the more people can get clear about that earlier on in life, and it just saves a lot of headache and heartache and pain. I realize this is a big, lofty goal, and I still can't help sometimes but saying, okay, I know it's lofty, but I want to encourage it. I want to promote it. This idea of, even with children, I know you have a young child. I don't have kids yet, but this idea of not in an artificial or hyperbolic way, encouraging children, talking to them about their qualities, their gifts, not in a way that's not helping them really connect with who they are. But I think that's something we have to, even as a society, get better at, being more active earlier on in life. And saying, gosh, you're really good at that. Like, not saying you have to do that, not coming from that place of like, you know, being an authoritative parent or oppressive, but you're really good at that. You should you should pay attention to that. You should explore that, you know, and just helping children. And some kids, maybe they have that, but I think we could do a better job collectively of promoting that, encouraging that earlier on, and helping, like, we're being mirrors to kids in terms of their gifts and their qualities, and, you know, knowing that they can make a lot of different decisions on their path, but then that can just save us a lot of pain and heartache. So I know that's a big wish, but that is what I hope we can get better at collectively.
I love that. You know, my son is 10 months old now, and he is in a phase of developing discernment. Like, I can play with this toy or I can play with this toy. Well, I'm attracted to this toy, right? And there's, for whatever reason, there's this like innate response to work with this toy as opposed to this toy. And I love the idea of the concept of at a younger age highlighting what someone's good at. I might even add in the concept of asking sooner in time what brings you joy. Because we might be really good at something, but it might not necessarily bring us joy per se. And that is actually something that, as I'm watching my son change and develop, and, you know, he's starting to work on the skill set of getting his knees underneath him and crawling and really exploring his body and his preferences and the way he does things. He's starting to build his routines of the way he does things. Trying not to hinder that, trying to just let that be, for him to develop the confidence in, this is my process, this is my strategy, this is the way I go about doing things. I don't think that was something that was highlighted in my childhood per se. Like, you do things this way. This is how you do them. And I think what I'm ultimately saying is, as long as it ends up at the same result, who cares the strategy in which you go about it? And can your strategy be a joyous experience as opposed to something that's arduous? I continue to hope that I'm a parent that, as things get more challenging and he's faced with more life of things in the world, that I can keep that at the forefront of, are you doing this because it brings you joy? Is your strategy bringing you joy? And I think that then can only make one more comfortable with success, and what is enough, and all the pieces that we touched on that can be so challenging in the idea of what we perceive success to be. At least I hope I can do that for him.
That's beautiful. Yes, that joy piece is part of it. Yes, and I certainly think that way as well. I just didn't articulate it, but I'm glad you put that on the table, because when you said that, I couldn't, the idea of, okay, I want to make sure we're also thinking about, you know, what brings you joy. I couldn't help but think of a movie that I really enjoy. You probably have watched it, Center Stage, about dance students at the American Ballet Academy. And
yes.
I couldn't help but think of the one ballet dancer, I think her name was Maureen, and her mother works at the school in the office. And Maureen's so good at ballet. Like, everything just it comes so easily to her. It seems that way. And she's really good, but her heart isn't in it. And she finally had to have that painful conversation with her mother who just said, well, I just want you to do this. I want you to succeed. You're so good. And she said, well, Mom, I think it's something that you wanted to do.
Yes.
You wanted to be a dancer. And she said, Mom, you didn't have the feet, but I don't have the heart. And I was like, oh, but what a important realization. If only everything could be that, honest and straightforward with our parents. But so I can certainly, that's an example of when it's just not a joyful thing. And even if we are good at it, and certainly to your point, that's something we want to be aware of. But yes, being more of a mirror to our kids in terms of their gifts and their qualities, I think is priceless. And I'm curious, before we wrap up, Nicole, is there anything that you want to share with the audience for encouragement or inspiration? Any final words or thoughts you want to leave people with?
I think that this is a challenge for me every single day. So I'm walking the walk as well. But I think it's important to remember that when you open your eyes every morning and you sit up and you take that first big breath, you're already enough. You're already shining. It's just what you choose to do in that day that will enhance your gifts. Or maybe you're in a tired place and what you need to do is nurture your enough and be still and be quiet. And that's really an important part of self-rejuvenation, to be able to go out there and achieve your goals and strive for whatever it is you're striving for. But to remind yourself every day that you are enough, that you don't have to accomplish 17 tasks in order to be enough, in order to shine. Wherever your energy decides to take you, or wherever your desires decide to take you that day, that's enough. That is success. By engaging in life, by maybe it's just an intimate conversation with a friend. Maybe it's walking your dog or spending 10 extra minutes grooming your dog or giving it a little extra love. Or maybe you love plants and your energy is given towards caring for your plants, whatever it may be. That is success. When you engage, when you make the choice to engage, you are being successful. I think we often lose sight of that in the rat races that we run on day-to-day life.
Thank you. So eloquent and good reminder, a good reminder to us. And I want to ask, what is a century cycling ride?
So it is 100 miles done in one day.
One day.
In 2017, once upon a time, I dated someone that got me into bike riding. And that person is long gone, but I loved cycling. I really enjoyed it. And it was another one of those things that was hard for me. It was challenging. It was a new type of strength building, a new athleticism that I was like, I'm going to do this. I want to do this. So in 2017, I was preparing for my first century ride. I was up to cycling what's a metric century, 62.5 miles. So I was at a really good benchmark, and I got in a very bad cycling accident. Broke my clavicle, broke my orbital bone, a couple of stress fractures in my ribs, and a very bad concussion that actually left me with double vision and the inability to drive for close to a year. So I'm about to be 40. My birthday's in August. And this has been a little thorn in my side in that I did not accomplish this task this goal that I set forward to myself however long ago. And so I now, after recovering from postpartum life, although do you ever really recover from that? I'm not sure. I am training again to finally fulfill this goal of doing a century ride. So, yeah, I spend a lot of time, a lot of my extra minutes on a trainer in my garage because I'm a little bit of a fair weather cyclist. I don't like it too cold. So I spend my extra minutes training. I'm starting to work my endurance, and then when it gets a little bit warmer, I'll get myself out on the road again. So that's what a century ride is. Yeah.
Amazing. Well, I'm rooting for you. We're all wishing you the best in that endeavor.
Thank you very much.
Can't wait to hear more about that. Well, I always end the podcast by asking my guests, and I will ask you now, which television show, new or old, do you recommend and why? And it doesn't have to be your favorite, but which do you recommend?
Oh my gosh. Okay. So I don't watch a lot of TV because life is just so busy and I really like silence at the end of the day. Um, but on Sundays, my husband and I watch John Oliver, which is, current events in a comedic, satirical way. It's an easy way to digest some of the horrific things that are going on in the world. And I guess I'll answer this question. If I have extra time, what am I binge watching? I still will absolutely binge watch Sex in the City.
Yeah.
And I feel like in the time when that show was still running was also a time that I was feeling kind of like lost in space and ownership of self. And to have these four women that were just like spearheading their lives and pioneering through, but also going through big ups and downs and pitfalls in their own lives was like it was a beacon of just keep going. Just keep going. It's all gonna be okay. Throw on your most fabulous stilettos and lipstick. It's all gonna be okay. Yeah.
I love it.
That would be it. Yeah.
I love it. Yes, I appreciate that. I was living in New York when that was airing. I think maybe like season 2 or 3 is when I moved to New York. And it's a gem for me as well. Probably for some of the same reasons, that the kind of camaraderie and the friendships, but also just for me, it was also fashion. Loved fashion. And I loved New York, the sophistication of it, or just the vibe. I'm grateful I got to live there. But yes, that's a show that I go back to, not every year, but maybe every 5 or 6 years. I want to kind of connect with it again. So
yeah,
I appreciate what you're saying about it too. Well, thank you so much, Nicole.
Fun.
Thank you for being here.
Thank you for having me.
Oh, it was my pleasure. I genuinely enjoyed getting to know you more, getting to hear more about your story and learning about your journey. And thank you for being so open and honest, which is, of course, who you are anyway, truly. But I get to know you now more, and we'll hope to get to know you further. And thank you for offering what you offer to the community. And it truly is valuable. So we're grateful for you. And thank you again.
Thank you for having me so very much.